السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. So we are today, inshallah ta'ala, looking at one of the most important pillars of Islam, and that's looking at some of the key rulings that relate to the pillar of Zakat. And Zakat is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, as we know. And the Prophet ﷺ made it one of the things that Islam is built upon. And if you look at the 5 pillars of Islam, they are not just acts of worship or important parts of the religion, but there is something distinct about these 5 pillars of Islam. Firstly, the Prophet ﷺ singled them out as being those things that Islam is built upon. Secondly, as well as being individual acts of worship, they're also communal acts of worship. They're things that bring the community closer together, and that bring the community closer to Allah Ta'ala as well. And this is why the 5 daily prayers are prayed in congregation. And this is why, if you recall, we said during Ramadan, we said fasting is performed in congregation. And if you recall, we said that if somebody was to sight the moon, but no one in the community would fast, we say fast with your community, even if you sighted the moon. And if somebody came from one country to another country, he was traveling, for example, we say fast with the country that you're in with at the moment, not with the country that you're living in normally, because you're with these people now. And fasting is a communal obligation, it's done together. Hajj is also obviously done as a community, and millions of people are performing Hajj every year, alhamdulillah, and have been. Zakat as well. Zakat is there in order to build the community. Zakat is there in order for the community to work together. Zakat is there in order for money to be placed in the right place, so that the community moves forward. And as well as being one of the 5 pillars, Zakat is the one that's often neglected, more than the other pillars. Why do we think that is?
Greed.
Greed? Maybe. Greed could be a reason, unfortunately. Lack of knowledge of Zakat. We talk a lot about Salah, fasting and so on, but when it comes to Zakat, there's less knowledge about Zakat. What else? Love of dunya, perhaps, yeah? Complication. That's right, there is an element of complication to it as well. Especially because the other acts of worship, everyone does together. If you're going for Hajj, if you don't know what you're doing, you can ask the person next to you. Or you can just see what people are doing and Bismillah, do what people do. Zakat isn't like that, because we don't pay Zakat in congregation. Everyone pays Zakat on a different day. Some people have to give Zakat, some people don't have to give Zakat. And so because of that, a lot of people misunderstand the key rulings of Zakat. As we said, Zakat is paid, and we'll have a look at that in a moment. Zakat is paid on a different day by different people. Ramadan, everyone fasts in the same month. Zakat doesn't have a month or a day. Zakat goes back to the individual. Everyone's going to pay Zakat depending on their condition, which we'll have a look at in a moment. This is why people often neglect it. Also, another reason why people neglect Zakat is that they equate Zakat to Sadaqah. So to them, alhamdulillah, I give lots of charity. So Zakat is just a type of charity. I don't give Zakat, but I give charity. I'm always giving charity, alhamdulillah. And so that idea that I'm already giving charity and the whole point of Zakat is just to give charity, and I'm doing that anyway, so therefore there isn't that sort of desire or drive to go and find out exactly what I have to do. Also, Zakat can be complicated to some extent, as you mentioned, because money comes from different places, you have different types of wealth, You don't just have, piles of cash and that's it. You have money coming in and out of your account, you have businesses, you have maybe gold, jewelry, you have this, you have that. So that can sometimes complicate things for people. But that's a fault on our part. Firstly, those who teach in not discussing the issue on the minbar when giving the khutbah, and also during classes. And also the responsibility of people generally to ask and to check. Because Allah Ta'ala hasn't made this something that is attached to salah for no reason. In many, tens of verses in the Quran, will Allah Ta'ala mention salah alongside zakah. فَإِنْ أَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتَوُا الزَّكَاةَ فَإِخْوَانُكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ. If they establish the salah and give zakah, then they are your brothers in faith. الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ. Those who perform salah, establish salah and give zakah. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu says, by Allah, I will fight anyone who distinguishes between salah and zakah. I will not allow anyone to distinguish between salah and zakah. They go together. This is an act of worship between ourselves and Allah, and zakah is an act of worship. It's also between ourselves and Allah, but it's also for the right of the people. People have a right to it. Now, zakah has certain conditions for it to be obligatory. And zakah is given on different types of wealth, and we will have a look at those types of wealth, inshaAllah. And we will, over these next 2 days, today and next week, inshaAllah, we will look at the key rulings that relate to zakah, that people generally speaking need to know. Discussions on zakah could be more extensive if we are going to delve into things and details that relate to zakah, which most people might not need. For example, a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and the books of fiqh are filled with discussion on how to give zakah if you own cattle, sheep, cows, camels and so on. Also crops, if a person has a farm and has different types of things, fruits and this and that, how to give zakah on these types of things. Because most people, I assume particularly the audience that I'm speaking to now, are not going to own farms, unless I'm mistaken, somebody does own a farm, we can ask a question at the end of the class. No own cows or camels or sheep. We'll leave those to the side, those discussions. We'll focus on discussions related to money, because that's how people pay zakah, generally speaking. Now, zakah is, what's the ruling of zakah? If we say what's the ruling on something, what type of answer are we looking for? We're looking for, is it fard, compulsory? Is it recommended? Is it permissible? Mubah? Is it disliked? Makruh? Or is it haram? Prohibited? Any question that says what's the ruling on this wants one of these 5 answers, generally speaking. Zakat is what? Fard. It's from the highest levels of obligation. No hesitation about that whatsoever. Zakat is fard in the Quran. Zakat is a fard in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Zakat is a fard by the consensus of the Muslims. And that's a well-known ruling that nobody should be unaware of. Not giving zakah is a major sin. It's a major sin greater than the sin of drinking alcohol, greater than the sin of committing zina, greater than the sin of theft, greater than many other types of sins. Sometimes these things need to be said so that we pay attention to them. If you ask any Muslim, is zakat obligatory? Yes. What's special about zakat? It's one of the 5 pillars of Islam. But we forget that the fact that it's one of the 5 pillars of Islam means that leaving zakah is a very, very serious sin. A major sin. And therefore it's not something to take lightly. Not on ourselves, not on our relatives and those that we know. And we should remind people and tell people that zakat always is given priority. Zakat is always given priority. Of course, the one who rejects zakah as a ruling, that takes a person out of the fold of Islam. If somebody says there's no such thing as zakah, or zakah is optional, or I don't need to pay zakah. Okay? I'm doing other things to help the community. That's an act of disbelief. Because a person is rejecting something that is necessarily known as part of the religion. When the Prophet ﷺ sent Mu'adh bin Jabal to Yemen, he said to him, إِنَّكَ تَأْتِي قَوْمًا أَهْلَ كِتَابٍ. You're going to come to a people from the people of the book. فَلْيَكُنْ أَوَّلَ مَا تَدْعُوهُمْ إِلَيْهِ أَنْ يَشْهَدُوا أَنْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Make the first thing that you call them to, the shahada. Testify that there is no true God except Allah. وَأَنَّ مُحَمَّدًا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ, and that Muhammad is a messenger of Allah. فَإِنْهُمْ أَطَاعُوكَ لِذَلِكَ. If they obey you and accept from you, فَأَعْلِمْهُمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ فَرَضَ عَلَيْهِمْ خَمْسَ صَلَوَاتٍ فِي الْيَوْمِ وَاللَّيْلِ. Then tell them that Allah has obligated 5 prayers upon them in the day and the night, 24 hours. فَإِنْ أَطَاعُوا لَكَ بِذَلِكَ. If they obey you concerning that, فَأَعْلِمْهُمْ, then let them know that Allah has obligated upon them, فَرَضَ عَلَيْهِمْ صَدَقَةً, has obligated upon them a sadaqah, a zakah. تُؤْخَذُ مِنْ أَغْنِيَائِهِمْ فَتُرَدُّ عَلَى فُقَرَائِهِمْ. It's taken from their rich and it's given back to their poor. Firstly, the word sadaqah is sometimes used in the Quran and the ahadith to refer to sunnah, to refer to zakah. That's an important thing. Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ, to the end of the verse. Sadaqat are for, and he mentioned the categories of those who are deserving zakah. Sadaqah in this verse means what? It means zakah. When the Prophet ﷺ spoke to Mu'adh and told him about this, he said, a sadaqah is taken from their rich, meaning zakah. What do we notice about this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ? And it's a well-known hadith reported by all the scholars of hadith in their books, including Imam Bukhari, Muslim, Malik, and Ahmad and others. We notice firstly that the Prophet ﷺ started with the most important things, and that is the shahada, then salah, then zakah. Secondly, the Prophet ﷺ said to him, a charity is taken from their rich and returned to their poor. فَتُرَدُّ عَلَى فُقَرَائِهِمْ. It's returned back to their poor. Indicating that zakat is given to the poor of your community, not abroad, as is common practice. Zakat is to be given to the poor of our community, and those in need of our community, and those eligible in our community. Because zakah is not just for the poor. Zakah goes to other categories, as we will see in a moment. Allah Ta'ala mentioned 8 types of categories of people who are deserving of being given zakah. And not all of them are poor. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. As a community, there is a responsibility to look after our own community. It's not acceptable that there are people in need in our community and they're not being helped because 99% of the Muslim community is too busy giving money abroad. Giving money abroad or giving money to those in need outside of your location, that's a good thing, that's fine. But the one thing that we should focus on our community, at the very least, should be zakah. If we are so passionate about helping others in need around the world, then we should use our zakah money, our sadaqah money, additional money that we have. The majority of Muslims, alhamdulillah, don't just pay zakah. They give zakah and they give a lot to charity. Many Muslims every single Friday are donating to the masajid. Many Muslims are constantly giving to different charities. Many Muslims are, have even standing orders coming out of their bank constantly to different charities. So we are giving money other than zakah. That money can go wherever you want it to go. Zakah should be given in the community. The British Muslim community generates a lot of money. There's a lot of money in the Muslim community in Britain. And that money can be used very effectively if it's put in the most appropriate places. Some statistics, the National Zakat Foundation, for example, and they came out with some statistics suggesting that more than 95% of the Muslim community, up to possibly 99% of the Muslim community, gives its zakat elsewhere, not in Britain. That's a huge mistake. Regardless of whether these statistics are accurate or not, let's say 80%, 75%. That's incorrect. Incorrect practice. Even though sometimes we might watch videos or see photos or have reminders about people are suffering in this country and that country, that's fine. That's fine. Allah Ta'ala has made those closest to us our first responsibility. And the Prophet ﷺ says, Al-aqrabuna awla bil-ma'ruf. Those closest to you are most worthy of your good treatment. Those closest to you are most worthy of your good treatment. The Prophet ﷺ says, Jibreel continued to remind me of the neighbor, meaning the good treatment of my neighbor, to the extent that I thought that maybe he's going to inherit. So when we have people suffering here in the UK, these are our neighbors. People are suffering in Birmingham, these are our neighbors. These are our relatives, these are people who are closer by than those who are elsewhere. So they're more worthy of our good treatment. That's really important to keep in mind. It's really important to keep in mind. So this hadith indicates that zakah should be given in our location, our locality. In fact, a number of scholars, including the Hanabila and others, say that it's not valid to give zakah outside. Not valid. That means that if you were to give zakah, it would be invalid. And you'd have to give it again. That's the extent that the many scholars have emphasized giving zakah in your locality. And the reality is, if all the rich people in every community gave zakah in their community, there wouldn't be a need. There wouldn't be a need. No doubt, there are many factors that cause poverty. It's not lack of money at all. Lack of money is not the cause of poverty. Lack of money is not the cause of poverty. Corruption is the cause of poverty, theft is the cause of poverty, deception and lying. These are the things that are main causes of poverty. But strictly speaking, in an ideal world, if every community was giving zakat to its people, everything would be resolved from a financial perspective. And so, as passionate as sometimes we can be to give elsewhere, it's important to give here. It's important to give here. This is a community and there are people in need. There are people in need. It's also incorrect to be under the assumption it's Britain, no one needs in Britain. Sometimes we're in need and you are in need. What about other people's situation? Are people not in debt a lot of the time? Allah made those in debt one of the categories who deserve zakah. Are there not people who struggle financially? Poor doesn't mean he's living outside and his wife and children are sleeping on the floor and they've got one piece of clothing and they don't have anything. It doesn't have to reach that extent for somebody to be given zakah. If somebody is living a life which is below acceptable, below comfortable, they're considered miskeen, someone who's in need. So they're eligible for zakah. They don't have to be on the verge of dying. Alright, go on then, finally. Now it's okay. That's again a misunderstanding. And therefore, this point can't be emphasized enough. Okay. Zakah linguistically means to grow. Zakah, increased and grew. And it also comes from the word purify, to purify. And zakah does both those things. Zakah purifies us as people because it detaches us a little bit from the love of money, because it obligates us to give some of what we have. And also it purifies our wealth, because wealth, money, we can be involved sometimes in, sinful income, prohibited income, questionable income. So when we are giving zakat, that purifies any sort of dust that may be present on our money that we earn. As well as that, zakah ensures that there's barakah in a person's wealth. As the Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu in Sahih Muslim, he said, مَا نَقَصَتْ صَدَقَةٌ مِّن مَالٍ. No sadaqah has ever reduced wealth. No sadaqah has reduced wealth. Although physically, wealth is reduced. If you give money, then you've got less money physically, from a material perspective. But in reality, Allah blesses that type of money and makes it as though your wealth is increasing. And I'm sure all of us have felt times where money numerically is not so much, but we're free of need, alhamdulillah. We've never needed to ask, never needed anyone else. We've always had sufficiency. And there are other times where maybe we are earning a lot of money, but for some reason we feel like we're maybe even in debt. And so the more we are using our wealth in the right places, the more Allah Ta'ala blesses this wealth of ours. Add to that, it's the right of other people. We're not doing anyone a favour. We're not doing anyone a favour, it's the right of those who are deserving of zakah. As we mentioned before, zakah is a separate obligation. Sadaqah, giving to charity, is a different thing. Some people, for the whole month of Ramadan, maybe they've given thousands of pounds during the month of Ramadan in charity. But if you ask if you paid your zakah this year, they say no. Paying zakah is more important than any charity that we give. So therefore this is something to bear in mind. As we'll come to see in a second, inshaAllah, zakah is not just given to the poor or the needy. Zakah is put in other areas of the community. Money is extremely powerful. Money is very powerful. How many Islamic organizations are struggling because of lack of funds? How many Islamic schools are struggling because of Islamic funds? How many, institutes, how many scholars and students of knowledge, how many, whatever it is. People are struggling due to lack of funds. Things close down because of lack of funds. Great initiatives and projects close down because of lack of funds. Funding and money is extremely important, extremely essential. But it needs to be put in the right place. Sometimes we have in our communities there is a bad mistake of putting money in the wrong place sometimes. It's a bad mistake to put money in the wrong place. Sometimes we are happy to spend thousands, if not millions of pounds on a new mosque in Birmingham. And we're not willing to give a single quid for maybe raising money to provide housing for women or single mothers or things like that. We're not willing to raise money for students of knowledge to study or scholars in order to give up all their time to teach knowledge and answer people's questions and so on. That's a problem. Not too long ago, in one of the masajid in one of the towns in Birmingham, not Birmingham, sorry, one of the towns in the UK, a masjid was built for £23 million. Yeah, yes it was. Yeah. I didn't want to name it, but you've named it for us. £23 million for a masjid. That's fine. Muslims are in need of a masjid, definitely. But £23 million could have resolved some. How many Muslims are probably suffering in Cambridge with all sorts of things, or Birmingham, or London, or Manchester, or elsewhere? And we all have personal experiences of people who are struggling and need. Money should be spent in the right places. Money should be placed in the right places. Now, we have certain conditions for zakah to be obligatory. There are certain conditions that make zakah compulsory. The first is that our wealth reaches the nisab. The nisab is the threshold, the minimum amount of money that we need to have throughout the whole year, the whole lunar year, before zakat becomes obligatory. So, if somebody has never ever in their life had more than £100 in their pocket or in the bank or whatever, are they going to pay zakat? It's not necessary. Maybe they're going to receive zakat. They're not going to pay zakat. If somebody has 10,000, 20,000 pounds saved at home and he's just kept that just in case there's a need sometime or so on, does this person have additional wealth that he can benefit other people? Yes, he does. And that's a zakatable or zakat eligible every single year. Every single year, zakat is to be paid on that money, no matter what he's saving it for. Some people think that if I'm saving this money, I don't have to give zakat. £20,000, £30,000, mashallah, £30,000, that's a salary of 2 people. But because I'm saving it to get married, or I'm saving it to buy a new car, or I'm saving it to buy a house, people might think that there's no zakat on it. Zakat is obligatory upon that money. The idea behind zakat is what? The idea is that any type of excessive money that we have goes to the community. Has to go. It's only a small part of it. 2.5% we're talking about. We're not talking about half of our wealth. So only 2.5% of excessive wealth has to go to the community every single year. We're not talking about things that we have for personal use. So this phone, which is not that expensive anyway, but if it was expensive, I wouldn't have to pay zakat on this. The car that I drive, there's no zakat on that. These are things we use for personal use. Even if the car costs 10,000, 20,000 or 40,000 pounds, because we use that for ourselves. The house that we live in, there's no zakat on it. Even if it's a very expensive house, because it's for our own personal use. The clothes that we have, the shoes that we have, the laptops, computers, televisions, whatever else that we have, these are things that we have for our personal use. They might be expensive, they might not be very expensive, but zakat is not obligatory on those things. Zakat is obligatory upon additional wealth that we have. Why additional wealth? Because when someone has all the necessities that we've just mentioned, they have all these necessities, and they still have additional wealth, that means that person is in a position to give money, and it's not going to harm him. It's not going to harm that person. Zakat shouldn't harm any person, because zakat is only obligatory upon those who are capable of giving. So the first thing is the threshold. It has to reach a certain amount. What's that certain amount? That certain amount, mentioned in the hadith of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, reported by Ahmad and Abu Dawud and others, that nobody or anybody who has 20 dinars, zakat is obligatory upon them. And anyone who has 200 dirhams, zakat is obligatory upon them. That equates to 85 grams of gold. 85 grams of gold. Or dirhams is the silver money, or 595 grams of silver. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, 85 grams of gold and 595 grams of silver were relatively similar. Relatively similar. Now what's happened? The gap is wide. What's the gap? Gold is far more expensive than silver. And silver has become a lot cheaper. And so now, 595 grams of silver, and this wavers around a little bit every so often, but is roughly what? Anyone have an idea? It's about 240 quid. 240 pounds. Whereas 85 grams of gold is what roughly? Huh? More. We are looking at almost 3,000. almost £3,000. 2,900. This week, the lowest maybe was about 2,800. But that's a lot. That's a lot. Huge difference. Huge difference between this and between that. Classically, the scholars and the Sahaba and Tabi'in, generally speaking, you'd give zakah either on gold or on silver, depending on, which one you have. If you have gold, you give it according to the cost of gold. If you have silver, you give it according to the cost of silver. If you have other types of wealth, you give it according to the cost of gold or silver, because they were very similar anyway. Gold and silver weren't similar, but the nisab of gold and the nisab of silver were very similar. So as we said, 85 grams of gold and 595 grams of silver were not too different in amount. Now what do? Some scholars say you calculate your nisab according to silver, because that ensures that as many people as possible are giving zakah. Anyone who has 250 quid, 300 quid, 400 quid, if you've had that for a whole year, give zakah. That's the opinion of Imam Ahmad. That's the opinion of Abu Hanifa. And that's the opinion of a number of contemporary scholars today. The second approach that scholars have is that you calculate your nisab according to gold. You calculate it according to gold. For two reasons. For a number of reasons, I mentioned two of them. The first reason is that something is not obligatory upon someone except with proof. And here, we are between obligating zakah according to gold or according to silver. There's a hesitation. And because there's a hesitation, we can't obligate someone to give money or to take their wealth unless we are certain. The second reason is that gold is more stable. Gold is more stable. So gold remains at a respectable value. Silver has dropped to about £200, £210, £220. It goes up maybe to £250. Nowadays, £200 is nothing. £200, £220. You'll be lucky to get your car fixed with £200, £250. And so if we're saying to someone who has had £250 for a whole year, zakah becomes obligatory, are they really rich for us to say that zakah is compulsory upon you? Are they really in a position where they comfortably have excessive wealth? Most likely not. Most likely not. And this is the position of a number of our scholars. And this position is probably more realistic. That the nisab is on gold, because gold is more stable. And gold gives an idea of those who are actually capable of giving some of their excess wealth. So if somebody has this amount of money, 2,900, 2,800, 3,000, that's when zakah should be on their mind straight away. And now you need to start thinking about, do I have to give zakah or not? If what's in your bank account is never more than 20 quid, 40 quid, minus 20 quid, minus 40 quid, plus 50, plus 60, minus 50, that type of person, zakah is not obligatory upon them in the first place. Even £100, £200, £300, £500, etc. That's the type of money that it can do very limited things. It can do very, very limited things. So a person who's in that situation doesn't need to even think about zakah yet. But the moment a person reaches a level, of course, are we saying it's haram for you to give zakah? No. If you want to give zakah, you've only got 300 quid and you want to give zakah, are you going to be sinful for that? No. Say, Jazakallah khair. You've done a good thing. That's not something to discourage, but we're talking about obligation, fard. And we don't make something fard unless it's worthy of being made fard with a clear text from the revelation. So the one who has 3,000, 2,000, 5, 6, 7, 800 pounds and so on, this person should now have zakah going, ringing in their minds, and they should consider whether they need to give zakah and then how to give zakah and when, etc. So the first condition is it reaches a certain amount of money. Are we clear on that? The second condition is that this money remains at that level, at that threshold, for a whole lunar year. That means one whole year according to the Hijri calendar, the Islamic calendar. A lot of people might be earning lots of money, 2,500, 3,000 pounds a month, maybe. 2,500, 3,000, 3,500 pounds a month. Although that sounds like a great salary, but that money goes where when we earn it? Huh? Expensive bills, petrol, car insurance, rent or this or that, wherever else money goes, paying off a mortgage, paying off debts, paying off, etc. And therefore it's not enough to just have £3,000. The moment you have £3,000 you give zakat. That's not how it works. A person needs to have a certain amount of money, which is this nisab that we spoke about, for a whole year. For a whole year. If we have this money for a whole year, zakat is wajib. If it drops below this amount, then we restart the cycle. We restart the cycle. For example, what's the first month in the Islamic calendar? Muharram. On the 1st of Muharram, I have £5,000. Am I above the nisab or not? I am. When it comes to Ramadan, do I have to pay zakat in Ramadan? We don't have to. Yeah, we said we don't have to. When it comes to Ramadan, has the whole year passed yet? No. Came to Ramadan, my oldest daughter got married. And this cost, whatever it cost. It's going to cost at least £5,000, maybe more. So this took me well below the nisab. Maybe I only have a few hundred quid left. Okay. Am I above the nisab now? After this wedding, or no, below the nisab. So what do I need to do? Do I give zakat? There's nothing to give. So I wait and wait and wait and wait. In Dhul Hijjah, which is the last month of the Islamic calendar, I got another big paycheck. Okay? And that came to £10,000. £10,000 now in the bank. Am I above the nisab? Do I have to give zakat? What do I do? You wait. If next year when? Dhul Hijjah, not Muharram. Because the money of Muharram is finished, it's gone now. If next year Dhul Hijjah, which is the last month of the Islamic calendar, I still have at least £3,000 or 2,800, 900, whatever. If I have at least that for the whole year, now in Dhul Hijjah it's wajib for me to pay zakat. 2.5% of what I have in Dhul Hijjah. So if in Dhul Hijjah next year I have £12,000 or £15,000, I give 2.5% of £12,000 or £15,000. I don't give 2.5% of just £10,000. And I don't give 2.5% of the minimum nisab, which is 2,900 or £3,000. I give 2.5% of what I have at the end of the year. So that could be a lot more than what I normally have, and it could be just about above the nisab. Of course, it wouldn't be right if you only had to give 2.5% of the nisab, because that means someone who's a billionaire is only going to give a tiny amount, so that wouldn't make sense. Someone who's a billionaire is going to give zakat according to his wealth, so he might end up giving millions of pounds for zakat. Jazakallah, we need that. It's going to differ from person to person, of course. طيب, is that picture clear? So now, in the first month, every time we go below the nisab, the cycle starts again. Until we have 12 full months of wealth that's above the nisab. If we have that, that's when we give. So when do we need to start thinking about zakat? The moment we have the nisab, which is about £3,000, we need to start now thinking about zakat. Okay, now my hawl, which is called the hawl, now my cycle has begun. If I have this amount of money for a consistent year, I need to give zakat. If it goes below, no problem, I restart the cycle. If it remains above 3,000, I have to give zakat at the end of the year. It might go up and down, that's not a problem. In the first month I might have £10,000. Second month I have 5,000. Next month I have 50,000. Next month I have 15,000. Next month, and by the end of the year I have £15,000. Has the amount of excess wealth that I have, has that gone up and down throughout the whole year? Yes, it has. Does that affect it? No. It doesn't affect it unless it goes below the nisab. If it goes below the nisab, we say now, that's below the minimum level, and you restart the cycle. If it's wavering up and down, but it remains above the minimum, then that's when you pay zakat at the end of the year. Some people don't like the idea of constantly monitoring. Okay, they just find it a burden to constantly monitor. I mean, right now, if I said to one of you, how much money do you have in your account, you probably wouldn't be able to tell me. You wouldn't be able to give me an exact number, unless you've checked recently. Because money is going in and out and in and out and in and out, and so we're not always sure. We're not always sure when exactly we're being paid. We're not exactly sure what money's gone out this week or that month. And so, not everyone is always aware of what money they have. So what some people like to do, they just like to set themselves a date. That date, every single year, they give zakat. Yeah? So let's say someone decides to choose the 1st of Ramadan, or the 27th of Ramadan. Every single year, the 27th of Ramadan, they look at their money. They look at how much they have. If it's above the nisab, they give zakat. If it's below the nisab, they don't give zakat. Is that a valid way of doing it? It is. It's a valid way of doing it. Why is it a valid way of doing it? Because if at the end of the year, on that day, you don't have the nisab, you don't have to pay zakat anyway. Whether you take the first approach, which is constantly monitoring, or the second approach, either way you don't have to pay zakat because you've gone below the threshold. And if you have gone below the threshold throughout the year, but when it came to your zakat day, which is let's say the 27th of Ramadan, you had above the threshold, strictly speaking, do you have to give zakat? No, because you've gone below the threshold. But can you give zakat? Yes, you can. And for a lot of people that makes life easy. Does anyone go with that approach when it comes to giving zakat? They have one day that they know in their mind, this is when they give zakat, yeah? A lot of people like to use that approach. They don't have to think about anything. They just have to remember, of course, the day. On that day, if they have the nisab, zakat. If they don't have it, next year. Simple as that. And that's an easy way of doing it, alhamdulillah. It ensures that those who have to give zakat will give it. And it also means that those who, strictly speaking, wouldn't have to give zakat would still give it. Which is a good thing. Which is a good thing. How do we calculate 2.5% in an easy way? Divide by 40. Divide by 40. You divide the number by 40. You have £10,000 on your zakat day, divide by 40. And that gives you what you have to give, Right. We said earlier that there is no sadaqah on things that we have for personal use. And I'm not going to take longer than this, maybe 5 or so minutes, and we'll leave it at that. Zakat can sometimes be a dense topic. You can't, it's not like you're listening to someone's biography of a scholar or something, and you can listen to that for 2 or 3 hours. We said that we don't give zakat on things that we have for personal use. The Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith in Bukhari and elsewhere, he says, لَيْسَ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِ فِي عَبْدِهِ وَلَا فَرَسِهِ صَدَقَةٌ. There is no sadaqah, zakat, upon a Muslim, on his slave or his horse. Why? Because these things are there for the individual's use. Horses like the cars that we use today. We use them for horses are expensive. Now they're expensive and then they were expensive. So So just because they are of value, it doesn't mean zakat is not obligatory upon them. Just because they're of value, it doesn't mean zakat is obligatory. We look, is this extra wealth or is this stuff that we're using? And therefore, anything that we have for personal use, there's no zakat. Does that include jewelry? The majority of scholars say it includes jewelry. So if a woman, and this is the madhab of Malik, and it's the madhab of Shafi'i, and it's the madhab of Ahmad, and it's the madhab of the majority of the companions, Aisha and Asma, and many of the other companions also, Jabir ibn Abdullah and others. They say that zakat is not obligatory upon jewelry, women's jewelry for example, if it is therefore personal use. So if a woman has jewelry that she uses, she doesn't have to use it every day. She doesn't even have to use it regularly. Maybe it's a very special and valuable, expensive type of jewelry. She only uses it for very, very special family weddings, for instance. No problem. It's therefore for the sake of being used. And therefore zakat is not obligatory upon that money because it goes under that which is for personal use. Just like our house and just like the car and just like everything else that we have. In the madhab of Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, the zakat is obligatory upon gold. Jewelry and gold and silver jewelry. It's obligatory upon these things, even if a woman is using them. And they say because, generally speaking, there is zakat on gold. So because that's the general rule, we're going to stick to that general rule, even if this is for personal use. And usually you don't give zakat for things that are there for personal use, but because gold and silver have been singled out as being things that you have to pay zakat on, zakat is obligatory upon those things. All the ahadith which obligate zakat on jewelry are weak. Imam al-Tirmidhi mentioned this, and al-Nasa'i. Some ahadith say that the Prophet ﷺ saw someone wearing a ring, and he said, "Do you give the zakat for this ring?" And she said, "No." He said, "Do you want that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishes you with such and such in the fire?" So she threw that ring. Imam al-Nasa'i rahimahullah and al-Tirmidhi and others say this hadith, as well as other hadith of its sort, are all weak, all of them. And therefore, the majority of scholars, as I said, consider that zakat is not compulsory on jewelry that is there for personal use. So if a woman has earrings, bracelets, necklaces, etc., that she uses even occasionally, even once in a long while, zakat is not compulsory. Does that mean it is wrong to give zakat? No. See, zakat it's always good if you want to be on the safe side and give an extra bit and give an extra bit, no problem. Even if you want to be on the safe side, instead of giving 2.5% as zakat, you want to give 3% or 5%. You don't make that a habit or a consistent thing. But if you want to do that to be on the safe side, not a problem. Not a problem. Because you're just giving, it's like giving to charity. It's your money, you're free to do with it as you like. But we're talking about here obligation. We're talking about obligation. Right. Anyhow, we will discuss some other issues inshallah in the next lesson. And there are only a couple of issues that remain to talk about, like zakat on businesses and things like that. We'll discuss those in the next lesson, and hopefully that will give an important summary of how to deal with this issue of zakat. Barakallahu feekum wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina. Does anyone have any comments or think to other Shaykh?
Question, you said in the Islamic community in here, where would be? We should do zakat.
No.
In this country, I can't see anybody poor like other countries, because here, the system of government, you're getting benefit.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody
here the system helps to some extent. The system helps to some extent. Sometimes, firstly, it's not always easy to know that somebody's poor, because it's a hidden thing. It's a hidden thing. You might see every day, tens of people walking in and out of the masjid. Some of these people could be poor. Some of these people could be eligible to receiving zakat. But it's difficult to know. It's not the type of thing that we can easily see. Even in countries which are classed as poor countries, or considered or assumed to be poorer countries, even then, it's not always easy to know who's poor and who's not. Not everyone who's poor is going to be on the street begging, like we said at the beginning. A person could well be in a very, very desperate state, but they don't show that to people. They don't show that to people. There are lots of people who are in need here. Even the support of the state is a state that, and it's a type of support that strangles you to death, first of all, before you get any support. And even that support is extremely, extremely minimal. Whether it's benefits or other types of support or credits that are given here, they're a burden for a lot of people, and they're not sufficient. And there are a lot of people also who are separated from their families. I personally know lots of people, lots of young women, for instance, who are living on their own and struggling to pay rent and struggling to find any support, and they're thrown into a hostel with other women, and these are not conditions that are acceptable living conditions. There isn't a need, as I said, they don't have to be on the street about to die. The fact that they're in this condition is enough. We said the Quran makes those who are in debt eligible for zakat. How many people are earning a comfortable salary but they're in debt? Are they eligible for zakat? Yes, they're eligible for zakat. Earning a comfortable salary, but they have huge debts, they can't pay them off. They're eligible for zakat. So therefore, any type of need, any type of hardship, any type of, any time you know that somebody is in a difficult condition, they're eligible for zakat. And we don't have to investigate, to the bone before we, make sure that somebody's poor. If I see that somebody is struggling, doesn't have too much, I can assume that they're in need and give them the zakat. And the zakat is valid. And I don't have to be excessive in investigating. If apparently they appear to be someone who's in need, someone says to me, I'm not working, for example, especially if it's a woman, because women find it even more difficult to make money. Oh, she's a woman. She's separate from her family. She's in a hostel, and then she's moved from place to place, or she's renting, and she's getting some support from the government, just about able to pay for some rent, but she's very much struck. Do I have to investigate more than that? No. You're in a hard condition, here's my zakat money, jazakallah. And I don't have to tell her this is my zakat money, say this is for you. This is for you, it's a gift or whatever else. And so, if we see somebody in that situation, we keep them in mind to give them zakat. If we don't, we ask. Ask the masjid, ask the certain institutes that concern themselves with these types of things, and then they can help us in finding the right people to give zakat. We're going to take him first and then come back, or?
I think I just want to put a little bit more clarity to what you just said now. What it is basically is that people kind of confuse between poor and needy. I mean, for someone who is poor, you could literally see them, maybe they may be putting on tattered clothes, they're under, the stress, on the bad condition, and it's apparent, you could see, it's something that, you could actually look at it as, yes, this person looks like he's a poor person. However, somebody may be needy, you will see them well dressed, they've got a nice car, they're living in a nice home, but at that particular time, they are in serious need. So that's the difference between the poor and the needy.
Sorry, that's right. And as we said, if the one who is in debt is eligible for zakat, even if they are not strictly speaking poor, or maybe not even needy in a strict sense, then that means the one who is suffering and struggling is eligible for zakat.
One question is about this topic, and one without topic. Recently, somebody is being pensioned and get lump sum in starting this year. Are they going to pay that money? Zakat, that money
comes into your account?
Yeah.
Comes into the account? You count it alongside all your other wealth with the nisab. So the same rules of nisab that we spoke about, you include any money that you receive for pension purposes or anything else, you include it in. Above the nisab for a full year, you give zakat on all the money. Below the nisab, and there's no zakat.
One last question, is not this topic. This morning, one of our brothers from Birmingham, usually to the Jamaat, is going on. But first time I seen him do the dua, second rakat after the ruku.
After ruku.
After ruku, he done the dua. So we never.
Which dua?
No, he's talking about in the morning. Fajr prayer.
Fajr. Okay.
Second rakat.
Yeah.
So I never heard and never seen anybody do the dua second rakat or fourth rakat. After this ruku, standing in the dua, then after the sujood. And I asked him to explain because it's more Arabic understanding. Somebody was here to translate.
We say that's permissible according to the Shafi'i madhab. The majority of scholars say it is not recommended. But according to Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, it's recommended and permissible. So therefore, if somebody does it as an imam, it's not a problem. And if somebody doesn't do it, that's also not
Not a sunnah.
It's not a sunnah. It's not a sunnah. According to Imam Shafi'i, it's recommended.
But he said the other Imam as well, they done Maghrib, Isha, and Fajr is
طبعا according to Shafi'i, you do it in Fajr.
Fajr.
You do it in Fajr according to Shafi'i. And some scholars, although there are a minority of scholars, say that you can do it in any obligatory salah if there is a need. Like a bad situation in some parts of the Muslim world, you make it. If the Imam does it, fine. But most scholars don't recommend it. And if you make dua behind him and you say Ameen, it's not a problem.
So you can't do it at home and doing home for the namaz.
You can.
You cannot without the Jummah.
Yes, you can. You make dua on your own.
So it's not the sunnah.
The Prophet ﷺ did it in some prayers.
Some prayer.
The Prophet ﷺ did it in some prayers. However, most of the Sahaba say that he left it afterwards. He did it for some part of his life, then he left it afterwards. And so, therefore, it's not a sunnah, but it's recommended according to some scholars, and therefore, some scholars say it's a sunnah. Therefore, if someone does it, it's not a problem. طيب. We have a question here, a question there, a question there, and a question there. No.
I just want to touch on what he said, and just to add a little bit. I could see in our minority communities here, sometimes
Which community?
Our minorities.
Yeah.
I could see some of our lifestyles cause some inflicted poverty on ourselves. Would that be considered? Such people would consider to give zakat.
I understand what you're saying, and it's a fair point. Some people cause themselves to be in difficult situations. If somebody, takes a loan of £50,000 in order to have an extremely excessive wedding, and then complain, and some people will pay huge amounts of money for a wedding, and then they come here asking for divorce a few weeks later. And for the rest of their life, him or her are in debt. So sometimes you feel like saying you don't deserve anything. That the mistake is upon them, and their sin is upon them, and the community still helps them out if they're in need, but helps them out with according to their need, and helps them out not in a way that they're going to go and spend in an unacceptable way once again. But if they are genuinely in need, then that support is given. And sometimes the wife has children, she's on the receiving end now because the husband's in debt, so he's gone and done a runner, and she's stuck with maybe debt, so she's stuck with that type of thing. So she's sort of the victim of that situation. Either way, the community still helps them and gives them zakat, but I can understand why you'd be irritated at this type of person. Who?
Is zakat only given in money, or can you buy food or clothes for a poor person?
Zakat is given in money. If a person had gold, they can give zakat in gold. If a person had cattle, sheep, cows, camels, they can give zakat in animals. As for things like clothes or food and things like that, no. Zakat is given in money in this case. No.
Can zakat be given to non-Muslims?
Zakat given to non-Muslims.
So you say you have neighbours who are needy.
Yeah. The vast majority of scholars, and this is the method of the four Imams, is that zakat can only be given to Muslims as a general rule. And if a non-Muslim neighbour is in need, then we're still required to help them, but we help them out with sadaqah, charity. We give them additional help, we give them charity. We don't leave someone to suffer just because we're not giving them zakat. We support them in other ways, either us directly, if we're capable, or we get help, and other Muslims can support them if they're in need. As for zakat, it's better, in fact it's obligatory, according to, as I said, the overwhelming majority of scholars. Some have even said this is a consensus, that zakat has to be given to the Muslims, because the Prophet ﷺ says, like in the hadith of Mu'adh, تُؤْخَذُ مِنْ أَغْنِيَائِهِمْ, taken from their rich, i.e. the Muslims, and returned to their poor, فُقَرَائِهِمْ, and their poor, are the poor of the Muslims. If somebody could find not a single Muslim, and this is a very unlikely situation, and it's a rare situation, if they found not a single Muslim, and they saw that there were some non-Muslims who were in desperate need, then in this case, if you were to give it to them, taking with this minority opinion that allows giving zakat to non-Muslims, then perhaps there's a concession. But the norm is that that's not permissible, and it wouldn't be valid if you did that. One and two.
So if you're that type of person who gives zakat on a set day, people,
Yeah.
and on the first day you had, say, above Nisab, £12,000, during that year you fluctuated, maybe 4,000, 5,000, and the final day, the day that you're going to pay your zakat, you got, say, £50,000 in your account. On what amount do you calculate? What do you?
If in this case, if your money has been above the nisab for the whole year, and it has not fluctuated below the nisab, then you give it on the amount that you have on the day. No doubt it's going to be more than you would normally give, but alhamdulillah, Allah's blessed you with this extra amount of money that you don't normally have. So also in return, some money is given, or additional money is given as zakat. If, however, you're going by this approach of choosing one day, but during that year it fluctuated below the nisab, here you have the option. You have the option either of paying at the end of the full lunar year, or you have the option of paying now. That's up to you. And if you pay now to keep your consistency going and to just make life easier, then that's good. Unless paying zakat in this case is going to be harmful, such that yes, you did get a big chunk of money, but that big chunk of money has only come in for you to spend it elsewhere, for instance. If some sort of harm is going to come about, then you can, in this case, work around it to make things easier for yourself. But otherwise, if the whole nisab if the whole year has had you above the nisab, then you give according to the amount on that day.
The scenario is this: say, for example, you have savings in the UK, and all year unless you've got an amount which has not come below the nisab, which is eligible for zakat. What's the case if you had savings elsewhere in another country and it has made the same condition? Can you now say, okay, the savings here in UK, I'm going to pay the zakat here, whereas that money which I've earned somewhere and is savings in another country, I'll pay the zakat there?
Yes, that's fine. There's zakat here and that's zakat here. And the scholars have a principle in which they say zakat al-fitr is given according to the person's body, meaning where he is at the time. And zakat al-mal, which is the normal zakat, is given according to the wealth. Where is the money? Is the money here or is the money there? So if you've got money here, money there, this zakat can go there and this zakat can go there. And if you were to use both for the country you're living in, that would be fine as well.
What if you could remember the exact dates you paid the zakat on?
Yeah.
paid it like I'm going to pay it a week earlier. Does that affect anything?
No problem. If you're not too sure about the exact date of zakah, and therefore you wanted to pay, firstly, if you're not sure and you want to pay zakah, you estimate. You estimate. If you're a few days on, a few days off, it's not a big problem. If you want to do it a few days earlier, just in case, or maybe a few weeks earlier, just to be on the safer side, because you can't really remember when the last time you gave zakah, no problem. Giving zakah early is permissible, and the Prophet ﷺ did it and allowed it. Yeah. I think, two more questions and then we'll leave it at that, so we can pray Isha and go home. Yeah.
If you've previously not calculated zakat, but just on the assumption given sadaqah for many years, assuming what should be sufficient to cover it, do you have to then, is an obligation to pay that with the correct intention?
It is, yes. Because if a person has not given zakah, they have to make it up. A person hasn't given zakah, has to be made up. And so
that sadaqah you've given cannot substitute that.
That sadaqah that you've given cannot turn into zakah. And we'll maybe look at that next lesson. But zakah needs a correct intention. A person needs to have the intention of zakah. We're going to look at what exactly the person's situation is. Are we talking 20, 30, 40 years of missed zakah? If we're talking that long, then that's another discussion. Because now that's an unreasonable thing to request from that person, because maybe he's going to go into debt just from giving zakah. If he needs to now make up all those years at once. If he's in a situation where he's missed 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, etc., say make it up as soon as possible. If it's a huge number of years, say make it up over time. Make it up over time to the best of your ability. Maybe every year you give 5%, such that you're paying this year and another year before, and this year and another year before, then this year, and you work around it like that according to what you can do. But try to make it up as much as possible. Final question, and we'll leave it to that.
You have a claim, for example, I guess your employer, and the claim had run over like 4 or 5 years. So, because the case was in the tribunal, and eventually, they decided, okay, fine, after 5 years, now,
So you're deserving money. You're owed money,
Yeah, you're owed money, So, and cumulatively, you paid lump sum, which it's above
the nisab.
And the fact that this money I had to accumulate for the past 5 years, and now you've gotten the money in lump, would you have to pay zakat on that?
You don't have to pay zakat on money unless it's in your hands. So long as zakat is not in your hands, you don't have to pay zakat. So
what about if you had?
So if somebody owes you £10,000, you don't have to pay zakat until they give you that money.
So what I'm saying, at the time they give you the money, say for example, somebody owes me 10,000, and he's had that money for 1.5 years.
Yes.
I would think that at the time that the person is giving me that money, I should pay zakat as well. At that very moment that he's giving me, because it's more like a savings which the person has had with them for 1.5 years.
That's right.
So that's what I'm saying with this one. Is the claim you have over your employer, which they're supposed to settle you, but the case went in court for like 5 years. And at the time that you were given that money, you were paid the money in lump sum.
No, but if something is in a court and it's being discussed and the claim is in the process, you're not considered to have money yet until you've received it. When you've received it, that's when you enter into the rest of your money. And there are some details to that which we'll discuss next week. It relates to debt, etc. Barakallahu feekum. Sisters, apologies if you did have questions. Next week we'll make them up for you, inshallah.